He's trying to attack us. Let's just send in the cavalry. You think I might win this one?
Judging from what I'm seeing right now, he has way less troops than you.
Oh, he's shooting arrows. Wait, soldiers are going down. Why did they all die?
You see how they're changing the formation? Maybe if we go to inverse arrow formation, you might have a chance against archers.
Okay.
Not the best idea. What is the best way to advertise a video game, though? I can sit here behind a YouTube video and laugh at tone-deaf marketing departments that had no idea how to make a game as appealing as possible, which is what I'll be doing for your entertainment today. But I personally don't have any experience in the industry. Who's to say how hard it is to convince the general public to buy your video game? But it's like what I always say. I can't fly a helicopter, but I can tell when someone's doing it wrong. A few things to mention before we get started though. I'll be looking at both the crappy marketing campaigns that didn't do the game any favours, and the misguided PR stunts that at best fell flat on their faces and at worst ended in lawsuits. I feel that gives a good vertical slice of the various ways you can fuck up the marketing of a video game. There's also misleading advertising to consider, but honestly, if you're misled by promises of a great game to play only to be met with something far worse, then that campaign did its job. Those involved shouldn't feel too good about it, but you know they do. If you're nervous about how good or otherwise a particular game might be, the last thing you need is a trailer or a press release that confirms and justifies your fear. Actually, that's a pretty helpful thing from a consumer's point of view. The sooner you can be sure that a game is likely to be crap, the sooner you can stop caring about it. We've all seen footage or just general news surrounding a game and made an accurate assumption that this much writing on the wall does not bode well. And really, you'd have to have sympathy for the marketing department that has to try and sell this. They have to go about advertising the game in a very measured way to ensure that they're not bringing attention to the more negative sides of the title. Because you'd hate to do that. I can't remember what was the exact moment when I started to be concerned that Mighty No. 9 might not be the kind of game that its hugely popular Kickstarter deserved, but I remember the delays, there were many of them, and they may have acted as an early red flag. Then they brought out a trailer, and that flag turned white. I've seen my fair share of bad and ineffective game trailers, but I haven't seen many of the same caliber as Mighty No. 9's Masterclass trailer. This wasn't the first trailer for the poster child of ill-fated Kickstarter campaigns, but it was the most memorable and least flattering. Somehow it managed to insult most of its fan base and show off the game in a very negative light, which, considering that this trailer came out less than a month before Mighty No. 9 was released to the world, is not creating the best platform to build on. The now infamous "make the bad guys cry like an anime fan on prom night" is a weird phrase to use at the best of times, but even less so when there's a large overlap between fans of anime and fans of Mega Man style games. This form of advertising where the game is just way too cool to be played by nerds doesn't work very well when nerds make up a large chunk of your fan base. Mighty No. 9 lacks a leg to stand on with its cheap graphics and decades-old explosions, so this confrontational trailer just pours more attention onto itself, and when held up to scrutiny, Mighty No. 9 crumples to the floor without much of a fight. You know you're in trouble when you're making Capcom look good. It stands to reason that marketing departments have to work harder with bad games since they can't rely on the awards they picked up at E3 or the glowing praise they got from reviews to help them. They have to put more effort in, otherwise everyone's just going to ignore them. But bad games have a certain kind of appeal to them, so it's not as bleak as it could be. Case in point, I saw the trailers and the reviews for Mighty No. 9, and I still bought it because I was thinking I was lacking some deep-seated regret in my life. I've always maintained that bad games hold a special value that is neither intended nor something that can be drawn from when it comes to advertising. There's every chance that a bad game sells kind of okay even without a ton of marketing. The bigger concern is a relatively mediocre, more bland than terrible video game, because you're gonna have to work damn hard to ship those units. Hey now, it's okay. If you're Electronic Arts, you've long since abandoned all concept of sensibilities and morality. So before Dante's Inferno came out, EA worked reasonably hard to ensure that everybody knew they were promoting a video game. Primarily through taking the notion of sin and circles of hell a bit too far, and passing off a bunch of stupid shit as a means of tying it back to Dante's Inferno. The two more interesting cases involve the Sin to Win booth at 2009's Comic-Con that promised one lucky winner a night on the town with beautiful women and limo rides because lust is indeed a sin and boobs sell boring God of War ripoffs. It was stupid and to some people offensive, but things were significantly more idiotic at E3 just 1 month prior. As it turns out, EA hired a bunch of actors to walk around LA in protest of this sinful new video game, saying that EA deserved to burn in hell for making a game about hell. It's not the reason I would have picked. I suppose it's not too far to reach if the nutty side of Christianity finds Pokemon offensive, but this instance didn't go down well with actual Christians since it painted them as prudish killers of fun. For 2 months in 2009, Dante's Inferno was the hot topic in the gaming press. It's perhaps an indication to how unsuccessful the whole campaign was that few people will remember this game in 2018. You're in serious trouble if even the promise of boobs isn't enough to save you. As a whole, the Western world doesn't really know the best way to advertise Japanese RPGs. They've improved a lot in recent times, but you can count on 2 hands the number of JRPGs that receive the marketing that they deserve. I'm not really sure why though. Maybe because at a glance they might seem repetitive, or having a complicated plot makes it hard to get information across in a TV ad, but franchises like Pokemon and Final Fantasy make it work. Maybe you just need your foot in the door first so that onlookers already know what to expect. That might explain why Earthbound flopped like a dead fish. Despite Nintendo being firmly established as a reliable source of groovy video games by the time the mid-1990s rolled around, they chose an odd way of telling the Western world all about this brand new JRPG called Earthbound. To an English-speaking audience, this was the first we'd ever seen from this franchise since Mother 1 never made it over to the US or Europe, and that goes some way towards explaining why Nintendo decided to market it in the way they did. What comes to mind when you think Earthbound? Is it the gross-out humor? It's the gross-out humor, isn't it? Nintendo thought the same way and decided to fill ad space in Nintendo Power and EGM with these case studies in using reverse psychology to sell a game to an incredibly specific demographic of presumably that stereotypically 90s group of young boys who like disgusting things that I'm not convinced ever existed. There was an official advert printed in an official Nintendo magazine that told readers that this new game stinks. And here we are wondering why Earthbound sold incredibly poorly and why Mother 3 never made it out of Japan. It presents me with a dilemma though, because I'm trying to work out if Mighty No. 9's anime fan on prom night tag is better or worse than this game stinks. Both of them sound like wonderful games. If I've learned one thing since the start of the year, it'd be that it pays to go through life without morals or integrity, and to harness the previously untapped power of your inner sociopath. Honesty might be the best policy if you want people to like you, but that's not how you make the mad bucks. You gotta think big and do everything in your power to exploit and step on anyone who gets in your way. Do this and it won't take long before you're on YouTube's trending tab or the captain of a rapidly sinking ship. In all seriousness, society is able to function even a little bit because most of us have integrity and respect for the people around us. I say most because some people advertise video games on gravestones for a living. The more you search for unusual PR stunts that were pulled in order to promote a video game, the more it feels like some stupid arms race to do the most outrageous thing in pursuit of publicity. It's led people to make meat in the shape of human body parts and send ticking packages in the mail, so using gravestones as ad space is, I guess, expected at this point. In the grand scheme of things, what Acclaim Entertainment did isn't as bad as some of the other more notably stupid PR stunts, since they didn't have to pay a fine and their actions were technically within the boundaries of the law, but I have a few issues. The story goes that Acclaim reached out to the family members of the recently deceased and offered to pay them money if they'd adorn the gravestone with an advert for their upcoming sequel to their weird adventure game that no one bought called Shadow Man 2: Second Coming. Most people's brains are aware of what is considered off limits when it comes to advertisement. So, a judge's gavel. A man's ballsack is probably also off limits, and yeah, gravestones. For Acclaim to have enough people working in marketing who thought that this was a good idea, well, that might explain why they're no longer around. Didn't even work all that well. I did not know that Shadow Man had a sequel until I started doing research for this video. Leave the dead alone, go back to using boobs. I'd say for the most part where an ad campaign has gone horribly wrong, it's usually quite funny. Some big publisher thinks that they know what they're doing and whips up some advertising that completely misses the mark, and they're forced to watch on as the sales figures take a hit as a consequence. That part's funny, but what isn't quite as hilarious is that the game doesn't take off as much as it sometimes deserves, and you can't help but feel depressed when marketing is done so badly that no publicity, good or bad, is generated. At that point, it doesn't matter how good your console is. So I'm technically cheating because the Nintendo Wii U is something a little more robust than one singular video game, but that is the exact reason why I feel it deserves to be mentioned. A new console release is some really important business, and we've seen how Nintendo have handled the Switch since its release. The marketing has been focused on a broad demographic while ensuring the unique feature of the Switch, its portability, was pushed to the front. Even if you ignore everything else about the Switch, you'll be able to take away from these adverts that you can play Mario Kart and Zelda on the go. The absolute best and most interesting thing about the new console. That is good. It's part of the reason why Nintendo has been buried in an avalanche of money since last year. The Wii U did none of this. You can look at the name and see a clear point of confusion as every member of the public has to have it explained to them that the Wii U is more than just an expansion to the iconic Wii, but it goes further than that because Nintendo decided to double down on the family image. The way they did this was by running a series of ads featuring loud, obnoxious children expositing every tiny detail about the console with irritating catchphrases in an attempt to convince their parents or their friends to buy one, and naturally most people found it very annoying. They kept this going right up until the Switch took over, and all that it did was alienate a significantly larger demographic than kids under the age of 15. You know, the demographic with a lot of money. The demographic that may well have bought your console if you hadn't gone hard with the family-friendly vibes. Those were indeed darker days. This has been RabbidLuigi, and the Wii U had more problems than just terrible marketing, but this was an issue that Nintendo had complete control over. There were a lot of strange decisions made in that 5-year period, but never stopping to revamp their advertising is one of the biggest and weirdest of the lot. Especially since we've now seen that they are more than capable in this area. You know, a Wii U ad comes on, there's a bunch of annoying kids, who cares? A Switch ad comes on, fucking pay attention! Have you got an idea that you'd like me to turn into a countdown? Let me know in a comment down below, and make sure you check out my Twitter where I'll be turning the best submissions into a poll where you can then decide the best topic. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.